Hey everybody, today we've got another 2024 election recap lined up, and we're going to cover everything in 5 different states, including Illinois, Utah, Washington, Rhode Island, but we're going to get it started here in Texas. And we've got a big win here for Trump. He's over 56%, Harris is at about 42.5. That's a far bigger margin than it was in 2020, where it was under 6 points. So that is well into double digits. It's a huge swing. The far end of what I was expecting was maybe 10 to 11 points. So the dream of Dems flipping Texas blue is at least on hold indefinitely, if not canceled. And we'll look more into it in the future, but you might notice in South Texas, that is a lot redder than it used to be. But let's go down ballot. We've got a U.S. Senate race. Ted Cruz won re-election by about 8.5 points. He did about 3 points worse than Trump did, and Allred did about 2 points better than Harris. But still, that's another big convincing win for Cruz, who did have some likability issues and nearly lost in 2018. Then if we go down to the U.S. House, there are a lot of seats here. There's 38 of them. However, none of them flipped or changed parties. The two closest seats were actually in South Texas that were won by the Dems. The 28th and the 34th. Those were 5 and 3 point margins respectively. So those two seats in South Texas might be a couple of places that Republicans could be looking to go on offense in the future. If we look at the balance of power in this state, it's going to continue to be an easy trifecta there for the GOP. They've got Governor Greg Abbott, who is not up for election this year, and then it's going to be easy majorities in the state Senate and House. Then down here, we've got the rest of the races. First, there's a special election in the U.S. House to finish the remainder of the term of Sheila Jackson Lee. Then we've got a lot of judicial elections. Republicans swept all of them pretty comfortably. And finally, at the bottom, we've got some state board of education seats. So a pretty solid election here for the Republicans in this state that 20 years ago looked like it might have been blue by this point. Now let's head a little bit north to another state. We've got Illinois. And this was an easy win for Kamala Harris. She's at almost 55%. Trump is at almost 44%. Now, even though that's an easy win, the margin was a lot narrower than it was in 2020. And for a while, this margin was actually under 10 points for Harris. As more votes came in late, that boosted it up to about 11 points. Kennedy is there at about 1.4. So this was a surprise for most people. It's a blue state, but it clearly got a lot redder than expected. Now, no Senate or governor's election here, so let's go down to the U.S. House. There's really nothing to take a look at here. There's 17 seats. Democrats are going to control 14, Republicans 3. I've long said I think this is the least fair map out of all the states. Only 2 of these seats were actually under 10 points, and both of those were in high single digits. So nothing really exciting here, no retirements, no flips. And in state government, it's going to be an easy trifecta here for the Dems. There might still be a race or two in there that has yet to be called. Let's go down to the ballot measures. Nothing extremely contested here. The first one is about election worker protection. It would penalize any candidate who interferes with the responsibilities of an election worker. 89% said, yeah, we want that. How about creating an extra tax bracket? This is non-binding, but it would express support for establishing an extra 3% tax on income over $1 million, with that revenue being directed to property tax relief. That's also a fairly easy pass at 61%. And the last one that sailed through here is another non-binding one, where in vitro fertilization should be covered by health insurance. That was yes at 73. Most of the rest of these are local county-related results. If you want to take a look at these, feel free to pause it, and as always, all the links will be down below in the description. The only thing that might be more high profile here is going to be on the Supreme Court. Both of those were uncontested, but everything is here if you want to take a look at it. Let's head out west to another state. We've got Utah. Here in this very red state, Trump winning it very easily by about a 22-point margin. He was at 59.5, Harris at just under 38. Trump doing just a little bit better here than he did in 20. Harris very similar, just barely above what Biden did in 2020. A lot of third-party candidates here. All that adds up to over 2%. So this state did not have a big rightward swing like many other states, but still when the gap is over 10 or even 20 points in this case, it's still an extremely long way away from being considered potentially competitive. Now we had a full slate of elections here in Utah. We've got a U.S. Senate race to replace Mitt Romney. The more moderate John Curtis was the winner. He's at 62.5. Caroline Gleick is under 32. So John Curtis clearly running a few points ahead of Trump, and Gleick running about 6 points behind Harris. But there is a third-party independent American candidate on the ballot. Next, we've got a governor's race. Incumbent Spencer Cox cruises to re-election with about 53%. The Democrat Bruce King was at 28.5. But we do have a strong third-party write-in candidate here, Phil Lyman. He actually challenged Spencer Cox in that Republican primary, and he challenged him from the right, so that might make it a little harder to gauge this margin. Either way, Republicans here sweep. They also swept here in the U.S. House. The map is drawn in their favor, and all 4 seats went red by at least 24 points. For state government, it's going to be an easy trifecta. In the Senate, we've got 6 Dems, 23 reps. In the House, it's 14 Dems and 61 Republicans. Couple of ballot measures here. Neither of these are really all that controversial. The first one is a slight cap raise compromise on some school funding that passed with 71%. The second one would make county sheriffs an elected 4-year term position. That was close to unanimous with 83% support. And then we've got the other statewide elected officials, attorney general, auditor, treasurer, and Republicans easily swept all three. Finally, some state board of education districts. Nothing too shocking here, Republicans win the vast majority. Now, Utah is largely a mail-in ballot state, just like the next one here. If we go to the Pacific Northwest, we've got Washington, and Kamala Harris here wins the state very comfortably by about 18.5 points. Now, the thing that's notable here is these percentages are almost the same as they were in 2020, and for whatever reason, it looks like Washington might have had the small shift to the right out of every state. Utah was low, but Washington is even lower. Even Clallam County here, which was the long-standing bellwether, that was easily won by Harris. So just like with every election, there's going to be one or two states that do something unexpected. Now, there's more action here. We've got the U.S. Senate, and incumbent Democrat Maria Cantwell had no contest. She's over 59%. Raul Garcia is under 41. Now, given that's just a two-way race, both Cantwell and Garcia did just a little bit better than Harris and Trump. But there's also a governor's race here. This was an open seat, but Attorney General Bob Ferguson easily defeated Dave Reicher. The margin here was a little bit narrower, but it was still by over 11 points. So the Democrat streak of winning governor's races here is going to continue at least for another 4 years. In the U.S. House, there were no flips. The closest one is going to be in the Southwest in the 3rd District. That was a rematch, and Marie Gluesenkamp Perez prevailed over Joe Kent. It was by about 4 points. I thought that one could flip. Looks like it didn't happen. In the 4th, more moderate incumbent Republican Dan Newhouse won by about 6 points over fellow Republican Jared Sessler. So of these 10 districts, Republicans are going to have 2, Democrats are going to have 8. And in the state legislature, it's an easy trifecta here for the Dems. They are short of a supermajority, but it doesn't really matter. This blue state doesn't look like it's going to get redder anytime soon. Next, we've got the ballot measures. This first one about ensuring access to natural gas was contentious. It would repeal parts of the Washington Decarbonization Act that deter the use of natural gas, and it would require local governments and utilities to provide natural gas to customers who are eligible. That one is controversial, but it passed with 52%. How about a measure that would eliminate a 7% tax on profits over $250,000 derived from selling long-term capital assets? That easily failed with 64%. Next, there's one here on carbon tax. It would block state agencies from imposing cap-and-trade programs to cut greenhouse gas emissions. It would also repeal the Washington Climate Commitment Act of 2021. Not really that contentious. No had 62%. And finally, we've got an interesting one here about healthcare. This would let people opt out of Washington's long-term healthcare insurance program, which provides benefits like nursing home care. Those who exit the program would not be subject to the CARES payroll tax and would not be eligible to receive benefits. That did not pass. It has 55% that voted no. So it looks like that healthcare program is going to stay in a more socialized direction. Then we've got the other statewide offices. Democrats won all of them. The closest one here was Lands Commissioner. I know that one had a contentious top 2 primary. It was almost 2 Republicans in the general election, but Jamie Herrera Butler here in the general comes up short by about 6%. And finally, here are the judicial races. One race here yet to be called on the state Supreme Court. So a lot of stuff there in the Evergreen State. But let's head to the opposite end of the country into the Ocean State. That's Rhode Island. And Harris wins this state with almost 56%. Trump is at 42. That is redder than it was in 2020, but still a 14-point win there for Harris. Kennedy pulled in 1%. We do have a U.S. Senate race here, but it wasn't close. Sheldon Whitehouse wins another term. He won it 60-40 over Patricia Morgan. No governor's race here this time, but we've got 2 races in the U.S. House. No contest here either. Both Democrats easily win re-election. Then down in the state legislature, it's a huge trifecta here for the Dems. In the Senate, it's 34-4, and in the House, it's 64-10. So the Dems dominate state government here. But we do have a few ballot measures. The first one would support calling a convention to revise or amend the Rhode Island Constitution. That's the kind of thing you might need to know a lot more details on, but ultimately it was rejected easily with 62% saying no. The last 4 are not really exciting all. They're just about bonds, and they easily passed with at least 56% support. And the last thing we've got here at the very bottom are some elections for mayor. Nothing super contentious here. Republicans have only one of these. They were able to hold on there in Cranston. So that's it. Another recap across a variety of different states. As we've seen, it's mostly good news for the Republicans, but it's not universal. Democrats do have some understated victories in a few states, so it's not a complete red tsunami. But that's it. Hopefully we covered everything. We'll get to the rest of the states coming up, but let me know in the comments anything else you're taking a look at in Texas, Illinois, Utah, Washington, or Rhode Island. Top of the ticket, down ballot. Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.